Let's unbox the Black Series 6-inch figure of the fourth sister Inquisitor from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there, thanks for visiting Varykino. I absolutely love the concept of Inquisitors in the modern Star Wars timeline. Felt like such the perfect way to introduce dark side users with lightsabers without breaking the Sith rule of two. So I was really excited to see how many of them showed up in the Obi-Wan Kenobi live action series. And of course I had to collect up all of the figures from the Black Series 6-inch line. I have all 4 of them, but sadly the fourth sister was the only one released during the plastic-free packaging era by Hasbro. So this is the only one out of the 4 that I physically haven't seen myself. So I'm very keen to open her up and check her out in person. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll take the figure out of the box so we can finally see what she looks like inside, check out her accessories. But first, let's take one last look at the box. Lining up all 4 Inquisitor Black Series 6-inch figures from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, that plastic-free packaging one really does interrupt the lineup. Not everyone can collect all figures, but for me personally, I was really keen to collect up the Inquisitor figures, especially. I thought they look absolutely amazing, each with their unique outfits, those iconic double-bladed red lightsabers. And then this one just interrupted the line. I knew eventually I was going to open them all up for display, but I know there are a lot of collectors that do like to keep their figures in their packaging, and it just seemed a shame that we've just got one out of the 4 that is just interrupting. It is a real shame. I really do like to see the figures. It just makes more sense going all the way back to those Kenner bubbles. You wanted to be able to see the toys and appreciate them even if you want to keep them mint on card. So instead of seeing the figure here inside the box, we have a glossy image here of the action figure instead. I would much prefer to just see the figure. For the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, we have this interesting kind of blue color. It's got a little bit of a slight purple undertone to it, and she is named as Inquisitor in brackets fourth sister. Thought it was really interesting when we look at the other ones. We have fifth brother in brackets Inquisitor, the complete opposite to this one. Then we have Reaver in brackets third sister, and then the Inquisitor, we don't have anything as a subtitle because we don't know his full name in this series. So I thought it was interesting that some are labeled as Inquisitor and others are labeled with their sort of number. I'm not quite sure why they went with that one. Seems an odd change up. On the side angle here, we have some lovely art of the character there. We've got a little bit of buildings here in the background. She's holding her lightsaber here off to the side. It's a little bit cut off. I would prefer to sort of see it a little bit more clearly, but we get a nice art there of her costume. I like the expression on her face there. And of course it says Inquisitor in brackets fourth sister down there on the bottom on that accent color there. It is a little bit odd with such a dark side lineup of the Inquisitors to have this blue tone color, but of course it is for the series, not the characters specifically. On the back we have that accent color stripe. This one is number 12 from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series of Black Series figures. Again, we have an image here of the action figure posed with her lightsaber, and we also have a little bit of a blurb. This is about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, not about the character. Obi-Wan Kenobi is set years after the dramatic events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, where Kenobi faced the corruption of his friend and Jedi apprentice, Anakin Skywalker, turned Sith Lord Darth Vader. So, not at all spoilers, and it doesn't really give us any information about the character. One thing that I did like about the plastic-free packaging was the nice diagram here on the side showing the action figure with the accessories. I found this particularly helpful if you've got them on display to remember which accessories came with which figures. So we've just got a nice clear posed picture there of the figure. She comes with one accessory, her double-bladed red lightsaber. And we can see that this figure stands 5.7 inches tall or 14.5 centimeters. And the rest of that side panel is just the plastic-free packaging mark there. So overall, just text on the bottom and a completely flat black top, absolutely nothing there. Of course, the other ones have that plastic window that lets in light, but because we can't see anything, there is no window. So now it's time to get her out so we can finally see this figure in person. So I've just quickly cut the sellotape. Let's get this figure out because I'm really keen to take a look at her. I'm really curious to see if her lightsaber is going to come assembled or in sections, because of course some of those Black Series sabers we can take the blades off. Okay, wow, that looks like the lightsaber is fully intact. That's kind of cool. I can feel there's cardboard in there and I can just see the lightsaber through there. And we have the figure tucked in under the cardboard sections here. Might just, is she going to slide out or am I going to have to cut some cardboard there? No, we can get that one out. Oh, that's cool. Okay, now she's all wrapped up in a Black Series tissue paper. Let's wrap it out. There we go. They always do look a little bit funny because they're just a little bit squished in the cardboard. But first impressions, she looks pretty cool. I like the texture on her skirt sections. That's pretty cool. Of course, there's mostly black. There isn't going to be too much in the way of paint details, but there's a lot of detail here. The Inquisitors have some really cool outfits. Okay, she's looking cool. Now, let's get her awesome lightsaber out. So we've got this little paper envelope that we've got to rip open. There we go. I kind of want to see how it is attached. Okay, we've got some quite fancy little packaging here. We've got a little cardboard cutout that it's just slotted there. Is this going to be sellotape? Yeah, this feels like sellotape. Sort of holding it down. Okay. And it's just underneath there. See if I can get this out without cutting that one. There we go. That's pretty cool. I like how they've kept that nice. And it also is going to keep it really straight. That cutout has made sure that the blades, because I was a little bit anxious about whether they might bend or something like that. Very cool. Okay, let's clear out this packaging so we can have a look at the details and some posing. So now I have the fourth sister figure and her double-bladed lightsaber accessory out of the packaging. We've got everything cleared away so we can take a closer look. I know there's an image on the box, but it really is no substitute for seeing figures in person, in hand. There is so much cool detail. Obviously, we've got a lot of black, but there is so much different textures and sculpting details to this. I'm really, really liking the detail here. So, of course, we're going to start at her face. She is an alien species. I thought it was really fun design. She's got this striking orange skin, and here we've kind of got sort of a dark red or brown toned sort of tattoo sort of marking here on her face. I was always a little bit worried if I can't see whether it's going to be well applied, but this looks really nice. Digital printing on her eyes. I think she has, I want to say it's kind of Sith eyes. I can see a hint of red there. It's very hard to see, very, very small, but that looks really cool. Nice and tidy here around her sort of hood here. And of course she has 4 alien head tails coming out the back. They are painted. This here feels like it's the skin-toned plastic. These are painted. I can see just a tiny little bit of black at the base of them where they have been painted over the black plastic of her sort of hood section here. No other painted details that I can spot on her hood, but this section here in the back, this looks to be like it's maybe attached in place, which would make sense because these would be very hard to sculpt in one piece with the hood. And that all looks very well attached, nice and tight. I haven't got any sort of really obvious seam lines or misalignment there. And again, with the hood, very nice and tightly aligned around her face as well. I do like it when things like hair and helmets and that are sculpted separately to the face, but there's always that subtle risk of something not being quite aligned. I've spotted it once or twice in figures in the wild, and it always kind of throws me off. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so with the blind boxes, essentially, for these plastic-free packaging, I'm always a little bit anxious that everything will be lined up and we don't have sort of smudged glue or anything. This looks really nice. She's got a fairly sort of neutral expression. She doesn't sort of look angry, but that is par for the course for these figures. They're not like Lego figures with the sort of printed faces with different expressions there. So she's got mostly black, but I'm really impressed with the texture. Something that immediately grabbed my eye was the texture of this belt here. It just looks like a tiny little black nylon webbing belt. The texture on that it made me immediately think maybe they put a little soft goods belt on this. The texture was just absolutely fantastic. So quickly looking over, we've got a couple of silver details on her forearm armor here, just some very small dots. We've got a couple of silver details at the sort of the shoulders here. A tiny little dot here on the chest. We've obviously got some details here on the belt. I like the silver belt buckle, very tidy. And we've got a red trim, a very dark red trim around her sort of skirt section here, going all the way to that split in the back. And of course, we can't forget the iconic Imperial cog symbol on the shoulder. This is in silver on both sides. Again, it is painted really nicely. Nothing is smudged. It is aligned very nicely there with symbols that are so recognizable like that. You don't want them to be sort of smudged or misprinted or anything like that. Really nice. Oh, it's such a relief when you open one of these plastic-free packaging figures and there isn't anything that's like really, really wrong. I've had a few where I had some paintwork that was completely misaligned. That was really sad. One of those cases where do you live with it or do you go buy another figure? And for that one, I think I'm going to end up buying another figure. This one looks fantastic. And I really like the different sort of textures of the black, because when it's all black like Vader, you really do need to sort of bring out the textures and things like that. So we've got a sort of a bit more of a gloss kind of interesting finish here for her sort of chest armor piece here, which feels very different and sort of contrasting here to the arms. We can see we have a little bit more of a matte finish because of course these would be either pleather or fabric. And then we've got a gloss again here for her arm armor. We can see that we have a ribbed texture here for the undersuit that we can see here at the elbows. She'll have leather gloves, so we've got a little bit of a gloss there. And then we've got a bit of an ab panel here coming down below the belt. But I am absolutely obsessed with this skirt piece. There's something about it. I play the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic, and so I really like building the outfits that you can put on your characters in the game. And there is something about this skirt that really reminds me of some of the outfits in that video game. This texture down the side and the shapes here. I feel like I might need to like build an outfit like this on one of my characters in the game, a dark side character, of course. I absolutely love this texture. This is quite rubbery. It's always interesting to see which components Hasbro decides to do in soft goods or which ones they're going to do in plastic, because of course plastic looks cool, you can get all these kind of really fine details, but it does restrict the movement of legs underneath. I'm hoping that because we've got a fairly sort of wide opening here up at the belt and at the sort of top of the hips, that we're not going to completely restrict the movement of the thighs because we've got a lot of articulation here. I can see that split across the top, so we can swivel the legs at least underneath, but I'm not entirely sure we're going to get too much in the way of sort of being able to lift the legs because of how tight it is over the top of the thighs. But I think this level of texture here would be very hard to do with just black fabric. I'm not sure how Hasbro would go about doing that. Generally, the soft goods are very simple, like Vader's cape, just straight black fabric. Some of the clone troopers do have the edging color, like with Rex, we get like that accent color around the edge, so they could do that, but it is this texture I'm not sure that would translate very well. And we can see more of that fantastic belt texture running through the back. I really like that. I can kind of see some of the attachment because there's nothing really sort of hiding where the torso is attaching in there. I can just make out a little bit of sort of an action figure attachment point here, but it's right in the back and it's not really bothering me. And we can see that we've got two little peg holes here. So I am fairly certain we will be able to put the lightsaber mounted on her back because, of course, with that large big ring, the Inquisitors do not wear their lightsabers on their belts or their hips like Jedi and other Sith. They wear their lightsabers mounted on their back. So I'm very glad to see that we have some attachment points there. That's really cool. No other paintwork or anything here. We've just got that black detail. I like the spikes on her shoulders. They are very small. I like that detail there. And you can see we're already starting to play with the arms and the articulation as well. And of course we've got really cool boots here, giving me very Darth Vader vibes, of course, with the big chunky black boots there. And we've even got the tread on the sole. That's just fantastic. Oh, yes. So exciting when you get a figure out and she looks as cool as you hope she will. I'm just absolutely keen to get all of my Inquisitors out on display now. Fantastic. Okay, let's check out how well she's going to move. So, her head is separate to her neck, but it kind of wants to move at the same time as the neck. And we can move it fairly well, even though we've got these head tails. They just kind of touch when I get to that point, but they are flexible enough that it's not impacting the way that I can move her head. So we can get a little bit of direction there. So I've already started to play around with the arms a little bit. The shoulders of her chest piece here do come out a little bit over the top, but it doesn't look like they impact on the articulation there. You will be able to see that the Imperial symbol does just go over underneath, under the shoulder piece there. So I would be just a little bit careful not to sort of scratch that. If you're really playing around with the articulation, you might be able to sort of wear that off there. But generally speaking, that's a pretty good fit. And we can see that again on the other side. Oh, that one's quite a lot more tight. That one snapped all the way underneath. So I'm going to be just a little bit careful because I don't want to damage that gorgeous silver paint there. But the articulation comes up like I would expect. We should have pretty standard joints in the arms because she doesn't have any bulky armor that's really going to impact the sort of the classic Hasbro articulation for these figures. I can do all the sort of movements that I need, especially important for characters that hold lightsabers. They are far more sort of acrobatic with their arms and legs than some other characters like troopers and stuff. To do some really cool lightsabers, especially if you're going to have characters fighting each other with lightsabers, I really want to be able to sort of articulate their arms, not in, anatomically impossible ways, but we certainly do want to just be able to, really finesse there. We've got all that sort of hand movement there as well. Everything feels really nice. I can move everything around like I want to. Her chest armor does come down, so we've got that torso articulation very nicely hidden underneath. So I can twist her around a little bit here. She does snap back a little bit, but I can generally get a pretty good twist going in there. Some figures, they just snap back to center. It just feels more like a play feature. You can't hold the pose very well. I know possibly I'd find a clicking point if I turn them all the way around, but if they're giving me resistance, I really don't want to stress test to see if I can actually find a point, because I'm not going to actually pose them like that on my display shelf. So we can see that articulation line here at the top of the thighs. Very tight, but yes, I can twist the thigh there. Now, of course, let's see how well I can actually get it up here. Oh, okay. It's putting a little bit of stress here at the skirt, and that thigh was very clicky, but I can actually get her leg all the way up. That's kind of fascinating. I really thought that might impact. It does feel like I might stress that over time, particularly at this little point here. But if you're posing for photography, that is doable. We'll just check the other leg as well. Okay. Yep, clicks at that point. Wow. I was really expecting this to kind of stop and then get sort of, a little bit lower down. That's awesome. We can get some really cool movement there. We can see the knee articulation here. I kind of like the way that the pant legs are sculpted down over the knee. It's going to hang down a little bit. Of course, once we really play with the articulation, we're just going to see that shiny gloss part of the sort of workings there. But we can get all kinds of movement going here, and nice at the ankles there as well. So we can get some really fun I won't pose it like this, but it's just really fun to see just how much movement we can get in this, particularly with so much plastic hanging down over her legs. Of course, she's probably going to be a bit clicky now that I've sort of really tested all of those movement points. But wow, that was really cool. I like seeing how well I can move that. And it does line up pretty well, so that it's only just that sort of little gap here where her knees are. I like how that's kind of fairly seamless. because I don't like seeing the articulation points, particularly if it's a character that I know that I want to just stand pretty straight. Because the skirt does cover a lot of her legs, I'm probably going to pose her, as most of my black series, with her legs straight and do the posing that I want with her arms. Speaking of arms and posing, of course, we have to check out her awesome lightsaber. I love Inquisitor's lightsabers. Oh, they were so mind-blowing seeing them in Rebels, of course, coming in, spinning them. That was absolutely just chilling. And I love that they've kind of kept that going with the Inquisitorius. So, of course, in the packaging, it came with the blades fully attached. I wasn't expecting that, but because we have two little pigs here, we should be able to put this one on her back. I'm just going to quickly test that. We've got pretty much all black here with some silver painted details. Very nice. Of course, all of the Inquisitor lightsaber hilts are just a little bit different. And I'm hoping we will be able to get her to hold this one without those pegs getting in the way too much. I know we've got to be able to attach it to the back of her back plate there somehow, but sometimes those sort of toy features can get a little bit in the way. And yes, so I'm going to quickly test it on the back, and then I'm going to try and take the blades off because they should be able to be taken off. And you will have to forgive me. I'm not sure which way round, if there's a left or a right sort of direction with her lightsabers, but I'm just going to put it on her back in this orientation. There is we can see that we've got a little bit of a detail here that isn't on that side, so it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it looks pretty cool. Of course, it looks pretty bizarre with the lightsabers ignited. I just wanted to sort of test that. That is really secure. That's not coming off. I've had some issues with some jetpacks and backpacks where it just feels like it's just kind of holding on. As soon as you start to move it around, it comes flying off. I like that this is sturdy. It sort of feels like, you know, when kids play with toys, you can just start doing some odd moves there with the lightsaber mounted on the back. So let's just pop her down in the back. I'm a little bit anxious. I always feel nervous pulling things apart in case they don't really want to go back together in the same way. That is really tight. Wow. I don't want to break this. Oh my gosh, that's really, wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, that did eventually come out. That's quite a long peg. There's like a little groove on it. That is why it doesn't just slot in. There is a little groove at the base of it. That means that that really connects in there. I was not expecting that. I was expecting that, and those little pegs make it hard to hold this actually without really hurting your hand. I'm just going to have to do it. Okay. Wow. That's solid. That one's got that same connection point. I was expecting sort of standard lightsaber blades. Okay, so now we have just the hilt looking pretty cool. And now we can go and put that on the back. So now she looks proper. Very nice. That looks really cool. I'm probably not going to display her like this because honestly, I think the Inquisitors look so much cooler with their lightsabers in their hands. So let's go. I think it's going to be easier to actually put this in her hand without the blades getting in the way because they are very long. So we've got a classic kind of C grip here, very tight. We don't have an extended trigger finger on either hand because we don't see the Inquisitors using blasters. So there is just kind of a classic lightsaber grip, which I'm hoping isn't going to be too tricky with these attachment points. So I'm going to try and kind of get her thumb in around it. This is going to be tricky because this looks like kind of a tight hand. Okay, let's see. Can we get you going all the way around? Okay, I think that's in there securely. It always takes a little bit to get these little plastic hands to hold lightsabers. So there we go. I think that looks really cool. I love these sabers. I love the design of them. It's just so menacing, especially when they spin. Something that I think would have been really kind of fun in the Black Series line is to do what I've seen some other companies do, where you kind of have like sort of like a motion blade where it kind of looks like the plastic kind of extends out as sort of like a fan motion. So it kind of looks like it's moving. I think I've seen some you generally see it in, say, like some of the Hot Toys figures in that. So you kind of get like a swoosh down. It would be kind of fun to see if we'd done that like on these ones. We generally just get plain lightsaber blades for Black Series figures. So now this becomes the tricky part, seeing how hard it is to put these back in. I really don't want to snap off a little attachment point. Oh wow, that's really hard. Is it going to be better to like twist them in? Oh, okay, there we go. Whew. These are very securely attached. These will not fly off. Okay, that one's going in. Oh, it's wonking. Don't break. Go in, go in. Oh, that one's really tight. Go back in. Okay, I think that's in. Oh, there we go. Okay, phew. Those are nervous points because it's so long. You kind of really do need the blades to be sort of straight in relation to each other. There we go. Of course, I had to test it out. I wanted to be able to put it on the back, take some cool photos, but yes, very glad to have that back and attached. And I'm not sure that those little points there are going to handle being taken on an awful lot. I feel like the amount of force it's taking to pull those in and out, that's so small. I'm not sure that that's going to be something I'm going to be doing a lot of. Generally speaking, I think if I can just get her arm in there. Oh, she looks so cool. My very first Inquisitor from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series out of her box to be added to my Black Series display. She looks really cool. Now I'm very keen to open up the others. Unfortunately, she doesn't get quite as many lines or screen minutes as the other Inquisitors in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but she does actually get a little bit more screen time in the Tales of the Empire animated series that we recently got, that dropped on May 4th, when she is part of the Barriss Offee storyline. I really liked being able to see a little bit more of her story and sort of interactions there. I think she's such a cool character. I'm always hoping that every time we introduced to a new Inquisitor that they're not sort of killed off or written out too quickly, because I think they are just fascinating in terms of just the whole Inquisitorious structure. It kind of reminds me of the way that Lucasfilm kind of tried to introduce dark side Force users all the way back when we had characters like Mara Jade and Asajj. The Inquisitorious concept just completely made it easy to have suddenly dark side Force users running around with lightsabers that still fit in with the rule of two. And I really hope we see more Inquisitors in stories to come. I think they're absolutely the coolest. And this is such a cool figure. Very, very relieved that she looks as cool as I hoped with that picture on the box. Very happy to have her out of her box and on display. And she stands up really nicely too. Those big boots. I find my Black Series figures always do stand up really well. Oh, she looks fantastic. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars Black Series 6-inch figure and had a lot of fun. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are in the galaxy. And let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Black Series fan, I've also unboxed the Purge Trooper Phase 2 armor figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.